threshold, where people go from closed to change to open to change, is one of the most misunderstood of the 5 thresholds. I often misunderstood my curious friends, and I thought they were seekers. They were in the 2nd threshold, but I thought they were in the 4th threshold. This happens because curious people are asking questions, but their questions are largely academic or intellectual questions, not personal to them. My friends would say things to me like, "What do you think the meaning of life is?" And I would think, yes, they're a seeker. But in reality, they were just curious. And they asked me curious questions that were irrelevant to how they live their day-to-day lives. The pivotal moment for curious people is when they connect the dots personally, and it's no longer an intellectual or academic conversation, it's a personal conversation. The turning point is when they say, I need to change. I need to grow. I need something in my personal life that's going to make a difference. This openness is not yet Jesus-directed. It's just an interest in growth. Sometimes moving from closed to open takes 30 minutes. Other times it takes a year or 2. It can be a hard and mysterious process. How does Jesus interact with people who want to ask him questions but don't want to let his questions or answers affect their personal lives? Let's take John chapter 3, John chapter 4, and John chapter 5. In each of these 3 chapters, we meet someone who is not yet open to personal change until Jesus uses a loving and engaging approach to help them see how they need to change. Meet Nicodemus in John chapter 3. He's smart, he's religious, and he's looking to get Jesus on his side. Nicodemus has a lot of good answers. He's complacent. Jesus sees this in Nicodemus, and he uses a very interesting approach. Sarcasm. "Oh, you're a teacher of the law. I thought you would know things like this." His sarcasm is trying to help Nicodemus realize he doesn't know as much as he thinks he does. He's trying to help him become open and leave his complacency behind. In John chapter 4, we meet the Samaritan woman. She's full of shame and pain. She's had 5 men in her life, and now she's on the 6th. Jesus does not use sarcasm with her. He asks loving questions that help her reveal her past and the pain that she feels because of it. Instead of deflecting, she receives his loving honesty, and by the end of the chapter, she receives the very living water that he's been promising. In John chapter 5, we meet a very different person. He's been crippled for 38 years, lying by the side of a pool that's supposed to bring healing. Jesus is direct with this man. He says, "Do you want to be well?" Which is pretty offensive. And then he says to him, "Get up." Why is Jesus so in his face? This man is stuck in hopelessness and self-pity, and Jesus is trying to shake him out of it. Which of these 3 styles of loving confrontation are you most comfortable with? How about sarcasm? Sarcasm says, "How's that life choice working for you?" Sarcasm doesn't work for a lot of people, but some people can pull it off and get through to another person. What about gently exposing pain and brokenness like Jesus does with the Samaritan woman? How do you help people see their own hurt? Maybe you say something like, "Sounds like you're in an intense season of pain. How are you dealing with that?" Or, "Have you ever thought about letting God into your pain?" How about the direct approach, like Jesus with the crippled man? Do you just want to sit in self-pity, or do you want to do something about it? When you look in the mirror, are you willing to be honest with yourself about what's dissatisfying in your life? For me personally, I start with the John 4 relational approach, and then I move toward the John 5 exhortational approach. I tell stories of my own brokenness and neediness and failure, and how I take all of this, and I bring it desperately and courageously to God, who loves me, and God that renews and transforms. That I tell them that story, and then I say back to them, "How about you? What would it take for you to open up that area of brokenness or emptiness in your personal life and let the God of love touch you and transform that area of your life?" As you become more comfortable being the kind of friend that's willing to help your friends connect the dots, helping them realize that they need the living God, that they need to become open to growth, your friends will go from being closed to being open, and then they will become seekers. They will move on to the fourth threshold. There's a myth that becoming the kind of friend who's speaking into another's life in love and in truth is pushy. It's judgmental. It's not being a friend. Actually, our friends desperately need someone who's willing to offer the truth in love. And that's what the third threshold is all about.